I've had countless interactions with very intelligent individuals, very intelligent traders or businessmen and businesswomen who carry themselves incredibly well, are well dressed, well put together. They have an enormous amount of career success. They have an enormous amount of success in their relationships and in their health, and are very switched on intellectually. Yet they still participate in what they label as destructive behaviors. Destructive behaviors such as overeating, consuming far too much alcohol, gambling, consuming pornography. And I've also worked with many traders who are very intelligent. They know exactly what they need to do based on a trading plan or a trading system, yet they still participate in destructive behaviors such as over trading, under trading when the market presents an opportunity, over risking. So what's incredibly fascinating to me is understanding the split between the individual that you would love to be and the individual that's participating in these destructive behaviors. Because if you can understand what that split is and what's causing that split, and you can put specific action steps in place to manage that, you can close the gap between being the individual you would love to be and being the individual you are, or being the trader that you would love to be and being the trader that you are, and removing that split and integrating those things together. And in today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a guide to self-discipline so you can understand why, as an individual, you are still participating in these destructive behaviors, and as a trader, how you can manage these destructive behaviors such as over trading or under trading, over risking, or making decisions out of fear or greed, and how you can identify where that's coming from, and you can put specific things in place to manage that so that as a trader you can stick to your plan, you can make consistent profits, and you can scale up and make more and more money as you trade more and more capital. So let's get into it. Now, like I mentioned, I see it over and over, high performers who participate in these destructive and degenerate behaviors, things like overeating, consuming pornography, gambling, alcoholism. And these are things that these individuals, even though on the outside they look very well put together, they still participate in these behaviors. And by the way, I've put destructive and degenerate in inverted commas because that's very important to understand when we talk about this in more detail. These particular behaviors, we're doing them for a reason. So to just label them destructive and degenerate and bad and label it like that and push aside any deeper understanding of how those behaviors may be serving a particular need in your life and them being there for a particular reason, I think if we were to do that, just push them aside, label them bad, we wouldn't be doing yourself any justice. We need to understand that they're there for a very particular reason and start to understand why they're there as opposed to just judging them and trying to push them aside. Okay? Now, to elaborate on this topic, I want to present this idea of the split between your current self and your ideal future self. And the current self is the one on the left here, where it's the individual who participates in the destructive behaviors, the overeating, the gambling, those types of behaviors. And the ideal future self is this idea you have in your mind about who you would love to be, this individual who's participating in ideal behaviors such as a healthy and balanced lifestyle. They're not overeating, they're exercising, they have a healthy sex life, a healthy relationship, and they're good with their finances, and they consume alcohol in moderation. They don't overconsume foods or alcohol or drugs or anything like that. And what we do in our mind is we create this split between this ideal self and this current self that we're judging. And the more in our mind that we associate good, positive, to the healthy and balanced and the ideal behaviors, the more we label that good and we associate pleasure to that, then the more we're going to label the destructive behaviors as bad. And we're going to judge those behaviors. And it creates this split in our psychology where we wish we were the ideal behavior because that's what's good, and we're judging the destructive behavior because that's what's bad in our mind. And as a trader, we're going to talk about this from a trading specific example soon. The more we label the ideal behaviors as good, the more we're going to judge those destructive behaviors as bad. And what I'm here to present is a higher level of thinking. Instead of trying to push away the bad behaviors and seek after the good behaviors, you'll actually find that that's the trap that's keeping you stuck in that paradox. There's a higher level of thinking that you can go to using the tools I'm going to show you to transcend this idea. Now, as a trader, we can put the exact same idea forward and show that, as a trader, we could currently be participating in these destructive trading behaviors, such as over trading, meaning taking trades that are outside of our plan. We could be over risking on setups that meet our plan. We could be not trading our plan when the market presents an opportunity out of fear, right? The market presents an opportunity that aligns with our plan, but we're too scared to face a loss. We don't trade, we freeze. Or we could be making our decisions based on FOMO, right? Getting in too soon, or we could be making decisions out of greed, taking too many trades. These are all ideas, these are all trades that we take out of emotion as opposed to sticking to our plan. So as a trader, once you have a trading plan, a proven edge, and that edge has been outlined in a mechanical trading plan, then it's our job to stick to that. But it's the emotions of fear and greed that are going to take us away from that trading plan. And we could be judging our current self who's participating in these so-called destructive behaviors, and we could be judging ourselves as bad. And at the time of participating in those behaviors, we have in our mind this ideal future idea of how we look as a trader, participating in the ideal trading behaviors of executing our plan with proper risk management and waiting patiently when there are no setups. And this is the ideal vision we have of our future self. And the more and more we label that ideal trading behavior as good, the more and more we label the right side of this diagram as good, then the more we're going to judge the left side as bad. And they're entangled pairs. They're a pair of opposites that when we're over risking, when we're over trading and we're labeling that bad, we're comparing it to its opposite, which we label good. Okay? Now, the more and more we try and seek after these ideal trading behaviors, the more and more we're going to label our current trading behaviors as bad. And we're going to beat ourselves up. And we're going to get stuck in a loop. So if we want to build consistent action and consistent self-discipline, the way to do that isn't by trying to be more of the ideal trading behaviors and trying to push away the destructive trading behaviors. But like I've mentioned, there's a higher level of thinking which helps you transcend this paradox. So some individuals call the destructive trading behaviors as self-sabotage. And they're thinking in their mind, I'm not the ideal trading behaviors. I'm not doing what I should be doing. I'm doing these destructive trading behaviors. I'm self-sabotaging. But I have a different perspective. And what I help traders do is to transcend this paradox of thinking that your behavior is good or bad, because there's a higher level of thinking, which we're going to get into in a second. Now, what tends to happen if we look at the brain and we look at how the brain reallocates resources and where your blood, glucose, and oxygen goes to, you can do scans of your brain and you can see the brain reallocates resources to the limbic system, which is the emotional part of your brain. This is the animal. This is the survival part of your brain that's responsible for keeping you alive in life-threatening situations. We are more likely to be split if we're living outside or living from the limbic system. If we have our animal emotional center activated, then we're more likely to have that split of this behavior is destructive, I wish I was doing this good behavior. This behavior is destructive, it's bad, it's negative, I'm beating myself up, I'm self-sabotaging, I wish I was doing the opposite, which is the good. So the more we're in the animal part of our brain, the limbic system, we're more split, trying to seek after the good, trying to avoid the bad. Whereas if we're activating more of the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, which is the more human part of your brain, the part of your brain that's the executive center responsible for planning and executing and having thrival as a human being, that part of your brain is more integrated. It doesn't think about good and bad. It doesn't have those labels. It's transcended that idea. So as a trader, you've heard me talk over and over on this YouTube channel that if you want to trade successfully and stick to your plan, you have to be trading from an activated prefrontal lobe. And you have to learn to quiet down the limbic system, the amygdala, and activate the frontal lobe, which is possible to do through practices such as deep breathing and meditation and those types of exercises. And just having a trading plan that's mechanical helps activate the frontal lobe and quiet down the amygdala. So there are specific things you can do to quiet down the amygdala. Managing your expectations also quiets down the amygdala. So there are action steps you can put in place as a trader to quiet down the limbic system, to minimize the split, to activate the prefrontal cortex, and to function from a higher function in your brain that's more integrated and more process-based. So I'm going to show you how we can actually do that through some very simple practices that you can implement. Now, I want to show you that the previous example of good and bad, and we can have the destructive behaviors in the bottom left, we can have the so-called good behaviors in the bottom right, and as long as you're caught in this idea of this behavior of overtrading is bad, I wish I was doing the opposite, you're going to be stuck in the amygdala, the emotional part of your brain, in the split, and you're going to have inconsistent behaviors. Meaning sometimes you're going to actually stick to your trading plan, and then sometimes you're going to overtrade, and you're going to oscillate between the good and bad. And sometimes you're going to have a bad behavior, sometimes you're going to have a good behavior. That's why people get stuck in the boom and bust cycle. They stick to their plan sometimes, they deviate from their plan sometimes. You know, when they've beaten themselves up enough, they realize that they need to stick to their plan. But then when they're on a good winning streak and they're feeling invincible, they don't stick to their plan. And they get stuck in the boom and bust cycle. Which, if I was to draw that oscillation just on a different perspective, it's actually just an oscillation like this. Oscillating between the good behavior, the bad behavior, destructive behavior. Good behavior, destructive behavior. When I'm in the destructive behavior, I have that stern conversation with myself. I really need to stick to my trading plan. So you do for a few trades. And then you swing, you get overconfident, and then you don't stick to your trading plan. And then you swing back. So if you want inconsistent behavior, a lack of self-discipline, inconsistent results, boom and bust results, keep yourself stuck in the amygdala part of your brain, which judges your behavior as good or bad. It's split. Whereas if you want consistent behavior and you want to trade from more the prefrontal cortex that's more integrated, that doesn't judge your behavior as good or bad, doesn't judge winning as good, losing as bad, you have to learn to transcend that lower level thinking to a higher level thinking. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Now, I need you to understand this simple truth that as long as you are trying to pursue the good, the so-called good behaviors, constructive behaviors, and trying to avoid the bad, you're still going to be stuck in that dynamic. You're going to swing left and right. You're going to swing boom and bust. You're going to swing from destructive behaviors to good behaviors. Okay? Because you're going to judge the destructive behavior as bad without ever seeing the reason why it's there. And then because you don't understand the reason why and the purpose for that behavior, you're likely to repeat it. And when you're likely to repeat it, you're likely to judge yourself for it again. Okay? So how these destructive behaviors manifest in your trading is through this particular step-by-step process. Firstly, there's some sort of a trigger. So if you're finding yourself participating in behaviors such as gambling, there may be a certain trigger of a slot machine, the sound of a slot machine, and that could trigger that state. Or if you're participating in watching too much pornography, there could be a trigger such as a photo of someone you find attractive, and that could trigger that state. Or if you're finding yourself participating in drinking too much alcohol, eating too much Uber Eats late at night, and overeating and really binge eating, it could be a certain ad that triggers that. Maybe you're scrolling through your Instagram or Facebook and there's an ad for a burger that pops up, or you're on TV and that ad pops up. There's a certain trigger. That's the first thing that's consistent in these so-called destructive behaviors. And then after that trigger, there's a shift there's a shift in state, a state of mind that you shift into, okay? And when you're triggered by that ad, you shift into a state of mind. When you're triggered by that photo, you shift into a certain state of mind. When you're triggered by that sound of that slot machine, you're shifted into a certain state of mind. And then the unwanted behavior comes in. That so-called destructive behavior comes in. After you've been triggered and shift into that state of mind, that's where that destructive behavior comes in. And that so-called destructive behavior comes in as a coping mechanism to now being in that state of mind. That state of mind that you don't know how to manage, that unwanted behavior is now a coping mechanism for being in that specific state of mind. So it's first a trigger, and then you go into a state of mind, and that unwanted behavior is now a coping mechanism for that particular state of mind. And then you participate in that destructive behavior as a coping mechanism, and now all of a sudden there's that self-judgment. I did it again. I overate, or I watched pornography, or I drank a whole bottle of wine, or I overtraded, or I over-risked, whatever the behavior is. Now you're judging yourself. And you're judging yourself because you see drawback without benefit, and because you haven't understood why that behavior is there in the first place, what that mechanism is actually helping you cope with. And then because you don't understand the trigger, the state of mind, the unwanted behavior, you participate in it again, and because you don't see the benefits of that behavior, you judge yourself again, and you're stuck in a cycle. So as a trader, as an individual, let's talk trading specific, if you can identify what the trigger is by keeping a journal, and you've got a detailed journal, trading journal of your behavior, and you can understand these are the specific triggers that put me into a certain state, and then you can also understand, all right, ask yourself the question, what are the benefits I get from doing this unwanted behavior, this so-called bad and destructive behavior? What are the actual benefits and unconscious motives I get from participating in that behavior? Because you wouldn't do the behavior unless there was some sort of unconscious motive or coping mechanism. So you can bring to surface what benefits you get and what or how that unwanted behavior is actually serving you and helping you manage that particular shift in state. So those are the things we want to be doing to understand why we're participating in that behavior. And then once you understand the trigger, you can put things in place to manage that trigger. And once you understand the unconscious motive, you can put alternative actions in place to get those same benefits without that destructive behavior. Okay? So this is the solution. This is the step-by-step solution that I want you to implement if you want to get rid of these unwanted behaviors and to have self-discipline as a trader. You firstly need to identify the trigger. Okay? You want to keep a detailed journal of your behavior. You have a trading journal, but you also have a journal of your behavior. And you want to understand, all right, sometimes I overtrade in these certain situations. And I see that consistent in my journal. What's the trigger? What happens in the market? What happens in my life that triggers me to overtrade? I've worked with many clients who just feel bored. They throughout their whole life have been overachievers, and they've been working to be overachievers, and now when they have to sit at their desk and do nothing, that doesn't sit well with them. It creates an internal conflict. So you want to understand what triggers you. And the way you do that is by keeping a journal of your behavior and understanding what the patterns are in your behavior. And if you can identify those patterns and those triggers, it's a very important first step in removing unwanted behavior and building self-discipline. Then, you also want to identify the unconscious benefits you get from doing the unwanted behavior. Again, the unwanted behavior is serving a particular purpose. It's helping you cope with a mental state that you've been put into from the trigger. So if you can understand what the benefits are of that behavior, the unwanted behavior, by sitting down and asking yourself, what benefits do I get from doing that behavior in that moment? Whether it's relief of anxiety or a relief in state of mind, or there are some deeper benefits there. You want to keep asking yourself, what are the benefits? Write down 5, 10, 20 benefits to doing that particular unwanted action, unwanted behavior, and you'll surprise yourself by seeing and understanding that's the reason why you do that particular behavior. It's helping you cope with a state of mind that you're not used to coping with. And having this new understanding of the triggers and the unconscious benefits you get is going to open your mind to things that you didn't see before. And it's a very important first step. So if you're finding yourself lacking self-discipline as a trader, the first step is to keep a journal of your behavior. Understand what triggers you, whether it's boredom, whether it's feeling like you're useless that day, whether it's certain volatility in the market kicks you into a certain state. Understand what state you're getting kicked into. And then that particular destructive behavior, understand that that destructive behavior is helping you cope with that state. So understand what are the benefits of that unwanted behavior. Specifically, what does that unwanted behavior help you do in that moment? How does it serve you? How does it benefit you? Write down all those unconscious motives. And then you'll have a new understanding of your so-called destructive behaviors. And I guarantee you won't be calling them destructive or degenerate anymore, because you now see the purpose and the reason why behind those behaviors. And then now, when you are aware of those benefits, you can now ask yourself, what are alternative actions I can do that help me get those same benefits without those poor behaviors that you don't want to be doing? Okay, good. Now, as well as just keeping a journal to yourself, you can write down a journal of your behavior in a Notion document or whatever it may be. I also have my Bulletproof Your Mindset tool, which helps specifically you understand what are your triggers just before you take a trade. And that journal, that Bulletproof Your Mindset tool, is completely free. It's the first link in the description. It'll help you understand what expectations and what triggers you have in the moment of taking the trade. That tool can be very, very useful for this particular process also. Now, the other thing here is that I'm assuming you already have a mechanical trading plan. You've organized that edge into a mechanical trading plan. If you don't already have a mechanical trading plan, I would be starting there. Take an edge and put it into a mechanical system to ensure that when you come to the market, you truly have an edge in the market. And if you need a free 6-figure trading plan that I give to all my 6-figure traders, there's one in the link in the description. You can download that. That trading plan template outlines exactly what you need in the trading plan, and you can just fill that in. Okay? But I want all of you that struggle with self-discipline to implement what I've shared here. Let me know what insights you get in the comments below. And if you need those free resources, they're left in the description and in the first comment. Okay? I hope you all learned something new from this particular lecture. If you know of traders or communities that will benefit from this, make sure you share the link with them also. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.